There's a moment many older parents quietly experience, but rarely talk about. A moment when you realize your relationship with your adult children has changed. Maybe they stop asking for your opinion. Maybe they dismiss your suggestions with a quick shrug. Or maybe the conversations feel one-sided, rushed, or even strained. You start to feel more like a background character in their lives than the guiding voice you once were. And if you've reached that point, you're not alone, and you're not wrong for feeling hurt. You may look back on the years you spent raising them through diapers and school projects, scraped knees and broken hearts, and wonder, how did we end up here? You gave your time, your love, your sacrifices, and now? You may feel unappreciated, or worse, disrespected, but here's the truth. Demanding respect doesn't work, getting louder doesn't fix it, and trying harder to please them often makes things worse. What does work is something quieter, but far more powerful. It's about returning to your center, standing firm in your dignity, rebuilding your boundaries, and showing your children, not through anger or guilt, but through consistent self-respect, that you are still the strong, wise, and worthy person you've always been. In this guide, you'll find 8 thoughtful and empowering steps that can help you shift the dynamic with your children, not by forcing change, but by inspiring it. These aren't theories. They're practical, real-life actions that many seniors have used to restore their confidence, protect their peace, and slowly rebuild respectful, more balanced relationships. At a certain point in life, many parents find themselves wondering what happened to the respect they once received from their children. You spent decades raising them, loving them, guiding them, and now, instead of appreciation, you may be met with impatience, dismissal, or indifference. It's painful, and in response, you might find yourself doing more, giving more, saying yes when you'd rather say no, hoping that if you just give enough, they'll notice your effort and start treating you better. But here's the hard truth. Chasing their approval doesn't bring respect. In fact, it often leads to the opposite. When you constantly bend to their needs or avoid voicing your own feelings to keep the peace, you teach them, subtly but clearly, that your voice comes second. Over time, this erodes not only their respect for you, but your own sense of self-worth. Respect isn't earned by putting yourself last. It's earned by showing self-respect. Saying no when something doesn't sit right with you. Speaking up when you're hurt. Reclaiming the parts of your life that make you feel whole, not just as a parent, but as a person. Take Margaret, for example. In her younger years, she was fiercely independent. But as she got older, she began to silence herself to accommodate her children. She rearranged her schedule for them, stayed quiet when they spoke down to her, and did everything she could to avoid conflict. She thought she was keeping the family close, but what she was really doing was slowly disappearing. Her children started taking her for granted, treating her generosity as something expected rather than appreciated. It wasn't until she began setting small boundaries that things changed. She started saying no. She took time for herself. She stopped calling just to check in and started doing things she enjoyed again, like gardening, joining a church group, and catching up with old friends. At first, her children were surprised, but soon, they began to notice the difference. She wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. She was living her life. And in doing so, she earned back the respect she had lost. So ask yourself, are you giving out of love or out of fear that they'll pull away if you stop? Real love isn't about pleasing others at your own expense. It's about standing tall in your own truth, with quiet confidence and self-respect. When you stop chasing their approval and start valuing yourself, you shift the relationship. Not by demanding respect, but by living in a way that naturally commands it. When your adult children speak to you with less respect than you deserve, your first instinct might be to push back. You may feel tempted to raise your voice, remind them of your sacrifices, or point out how ungrateful they're being. After all, you spent years guiding them, providing for them, and shaping the very lives they now lead. It hurts to feel dismissed. But as hard as it is to accept, arguing rarely works. It doesn't restore respect, it only creates more conflict and distance. At this stage of life, your dignity holds more power than your words. When you engage in arguments, especially emotional ones, you may unintentionally reinforce the idea that your children can get a reaction out of you, and when they see you reacting with anger or frustration, they may feel justified in their behavior. That's why, instead of arguing, the more powerful choice is to lead by example. Show them, not tell them, what respectful communication looks like. Think of Frank, a retired high school teacher in his 70s. In the classroom, he was respected and admired. His voice carried authority and his presence demanded attention. But at home, things were different. His adult children often brushed off his opinions. They rolled their eyes, interrupted him mid-sentence, and treated him like someone who had outlived his usefulness. At first, Frank tried to fight back. He raised his voice, listed all the things he'd done for them, and tried to win arguments by sheer logic. But it never worked. If anything, it made things worse. One day, Frank decided to take a different approach. He stopped trying to convince them with words. He focused on listening more and speaking less. When he did speak, it was with calm, quiet confidence. He didn't demand attention, he earned it. Slowly, his children began to notice the change. He no longer seemed desperate to be heard. He became a man who stood in his truth, regardless of how others responded. That shift in energy changed the way they saw him. When you respond to disrespect with dignity, you reclaim your power. You show your children that you don't need to shout or argue to command respect. You teach by your actions, not your reactions. That means staying calm when they push your buttons. It means maintaining your composure when they try to dismiss you. And it means continuing to treat yourself and them with grace, even when it's not returned. You don't have to win every argument. You don't even have to participate in most of them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say, "Let's talk when we're both ready to have a respectful conversation," and walk away. That's not weakness, that's strength. By refusing to argue and choosing instead to lead with maturity, patience, and composure, you send a message far louder than any raised voice ever could. And over time, your example may be the very thing that restores the respect you've been missing. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. As we grow older, it's only natural to hope that our children will stay close, both physically and emotionally. We long for their phone calls, look forward to their visits, and hold on to memories of the closeness we once shared. But when those calls don't come, or when visits feel rushed or infrequent, the silence can feel painful. You may start to feel invisible, forgotten, or left behind. And in response, you may try harder, calling more often, offering help, or sharing how much you miss them. But often these actions, while well-intentioned, end up creating more distance. The reason is subtle but powerful. Emotional dependence can feel heavy to the person on the receiving end. When your children sense that your emotional well-being depends on their time, attention, or approval, it can feel like pressure. And rather than drawing them closer, it can push them away. The more you try to hold on, and the more they may pull back. Not because they don't love you, but because they feel overwhelmed. This is where emotional independence becomes essential. It doesn't mean shutting your children out. It means creating a life that is full and meaningful, whether they call or not. It means finding joy in your own experiences, peace in your own presence, and pride in your own growth. When you become emotionally self-reliant, you stop needing them to fill in the gaps. And that shift often brings them back naturally. Helen, a loving mother and widow in her 70s, struggled with this. After her husband passed, she leaned heavily on her children. She called them daily, often more than once, and would gently express her disappointment when they didn't respond quickly. Over time, they grew distant. The calls slowed down. Helen felt abandoned. But then she made a change. She joined a local ceramics class. She started walking with a neighbor every morning. She even went on a bus tour with a group of seniors. As she built a new rhythm for herself, something shifted. Her children began calling more. They asked about her life. They made time to visit, not out of guilt, but out of genuine interest. The more you build emotional resilience within yourself, the more your children will respect your time, your energy, and your company. They'll no longer see you as someone waiting for their attention, but as someone living a full and vibrant life of their own. When you show that you don't need their presence to feel fulfilled, you create space for connection to return. on healthier, more respectful terms. Emotional independence isn't about cutting ties. It's about strengthening the foundation so those ties are based on love, not obligation. Many older adults struggle with setting boundaries, especially when it comes to their children. After all, we spent years giving them everything we had, our time, our energy, our love, and setting limits now can feel unfamiliar or even selfish. But boundaries aren't about being unkind, they're about self-respect. And if your children are treating you in ways that leave you feeling disrespected, unheard, or used, it's time to draw the line, clearly, calmly, and firmly. A boundary is simply a way of saying, this is what I will accept, and this is what I won't. It can be about how they speak to you, how often they rely on you for help, or how they involve you in their lives. And the key isn't just setting the boundary, it's enforcing it. If you say you won't tolerate being spoken to rudely and they do it anyway, you need to follow through. That might mean ending the conversation. It might mean stepping away until things calm down, but the message should be consistent. I respect myself and I expect you to respect me too. Take Robert, a retired manager and father of 3. His kids were always quick to criticize his choices. How he spent his money, how he dressed, even how he kept his home. At first, he laughed it off. He told himself, they mean well. But over time, it chipped away at his confidence. One day, he decided to change course. The next time one of his children made a critical comment, he said, I appreciate your concern, but I'm happy with how I'm doing things. I won't entertain criticism that's not constructive. At first, there was tension, but eventually the criticism stopped. His children began treating him with more consideration, and he felt more empowered. Boundaries don't destroy relationships, they strengthen them. When you teach people how to treat you, you don't just protect your peace, you improve the quality of the connection. It's not about control, it's about clarity. If your children aren't treating you the way you deserve, don't wait for them to change. Lead the way, set the tone. And remember, enforcing a boundary isn't about pushing people away. It's about inviting them to relate to you in a healthier, more respectful way. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. As a parent, giving comes naturally. You've spent a lifetime doing it, offering your time, your money, your attention, and your care. But there comes a point when giving without receiving any appreciation doesn't just feel exhausting, it starts to feel disrespectful. When kindness is met with silence, when help becomes expected instead of appreciated, something needs to change. It's easy to think, that's just what parents do. But constant giving without gratitude doesn't create stronger relationships, it creates imbalance. And the more you give under those conditions, the more likely it is that your generosity will be taken for granted. Let's consider George, a generous father who was always ready to help. Whether his children needed financial support, a last-minute babysitter, or a ride to the airport, he showed up, no questions asked. But over time, he noticed something. They had stopped saying thank you, they assumed he'd say yes. And when he once needed help during a health scare, they were too busy to come. That moment opened his eyes. He realized that his giving had become automatic, and because of that, it had lost its value. George decided to make a change. He started saying no when it didn't work for him. He waited for them to ask for help instead of offering it before they even voiced a need. At first, they were confused, even frustrated. But gradually, they began to say thank you. Again, they started treating his time and support with the respect it deserved. Generosity is a beautiful thing, but it should never come at the cost of your own well-being. If your children are used to you always being available, always giving, always saying yes, it's time to reevaluate. Giving should come from a place of joy, not obligation. And when it's not acknowledged, it's okay to pull back. Teach your children that your time, your help, and your love are gifts, not guarantees. And remember, the goal isn't to stop giving. It's to restore balance. When your kindness is treated with appreciation, it becomes meaningful again. Not just for them, but for you. As parents, it's easy to center our lives around our children. From the time they're born, we shape our days around their needs, milestones, and happiness. But once they grow up and begin their own families or careers, that closeness naturally begins to shift. When your children become less involved in your daily life, it can feel like a loss of connection, of purpose, of meaning. And in response, many older parents make the mistake of trying to hold on too tightly. You might call more than they do. You might try to involve yourself in their lives to feel needed. You may even begin waiting for them to fill your days again, like they once did. But here's the truth. When your children sense that you have no life outside of them, it can be overwhelming. It may make them pull back further, not out of disrespect, but because they feel pressured. That's why one of the best things you can do for yourself and for your relationship with your children is to build a life that is your own. A life filled with people, interests, routines, and joy that exist independently of their involvement. This doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you also love yourself. Take Alanner, for example. In her late 70s, widowed and retired, she found herself clinging to her children. She called every day. She offered advice they didn't ask for. She rearranged her week, hoping to get a few minutes of their time. But instead of bringing them closer, it pushed them away. They began answering less. Their visits became shorter. Alanner felt hurt and alone. Penn, a friend, encouraged her to join a book club at the library. She did. Then she joined a walking group in her neighborhood. Slowly, her days began to fill. She met new friends, rediscovered old hobbies, and found herself smiling more. And something remarkable happened. Her children began calling again. They asked what she was up to. They admired her independence. When your children see you living a full, meaningful life, it changes the way they relate to you. You're no longer someone waiting for their attention. You're someone they respect, someone they want to connect with, not out of guilt, but out of interest. So take that class, join that group, volunteer, create, explore. The world is still full of opportunities to learn, laugh, and grow at any age. And when your life is rich with purpose and joy, your children will see you in a new light. Not just as mom or dad, but as a person who is still very much alive and worth respecting deeply. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 7 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. After a lifetime of parenting, it's natural to feel that you've earned the right to be heard. You've experienced more, seen more, and lived through enough to know a thing or two. So when your children do something that you know isn't wise, or when they ignore your advice, it can be frustrating. You might feel the urge to correct them, to say, "I told you so," or to insist that your way is the right way. But insisting on being right, even when you are, can often do more harm than good. Adult children want to feel like they are in control of their own lives. When they sense that every conversation turns into a lecture or that your approval is conditional on their agreement, they may pull away, not because you're wrong, but because they feel disrespected. The truth is, you can be right without needing to prove it. Letting go of the need to be right is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the strength to say, "I see things differently, and that's okay." It's choosing peace over pride. And in many cases, it opens the door to a healthier, more respectful relationship. Consider Richard, a retired engineer and father of 2. He had always been the problem solver in the family, but as his children reached their 40s, they began making decisions he didn't agree with, from how they raised their kids to how they handled money. At first, he tried to correct them, often reminding them of what works. But every conversation turned tense. His calls became shorter. His children stopped asking for advice. Eventually, Richard decided to stop pushing. He started listening more. When they came to him, he offered thoughts, but only when asked. When he disagreed, he simply said, "I see where you're coming from." And over time, something changed. His children started calling again. They asked for his input, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Letting go of the need to be right doesn't mean silencing yourself. It means speaking when the time is right and letting silence do the rest. It means trusting that your children are on their own journey and that they'll figure things out, just as you once did. When you release the urge to win every conversation, You invite real connection. You become someone they feel safe with, not someone they need to defend themselves against. And in that safety, respect has a chance to grow. It's hard to let go when you've spent most of your life protecting, guiding, and nurturing your children. Even when they're grown, the instinct to step in, to fix, to advise, to guide is strong. But at a certain point, trying to control your children's lives, even gently, can create distance. What they may hear isn't love, it's judgment. You might think you're helping by offering advice before it's asked for, or by warning them about decisions they're making. But often what they experience is the message, I don't trust you to handle this. And the more you try to steer their lives, the more they may push you away, not out of rebellion, but in search of autonomy. That's why it's so important to shift your focus inward. Instead of managing their path, start tending to your own. Focus on your inner peace, your emotional well-being, your day-to-day joy, your sense of balance. When you let go of the need to oversee their lives, you free both of you. Martha, a retired nurse and mother of 4, had always been the fixer in the family. Even in her 70s, she tried to manage her children's issues, from relationship troubles to parenting choices. It came from love, but it started wearing on everyone. Eventually, one of her daughters said, "Mom, I love you, but I need space to figure things out without being told what to do." That conversation stung, but it was a turning point. Martha began focusing on herself. She learned meditation. She reconnected with painting hobby. She even took a mindfulness class at the community center. Over time, her energy softened. Her conversations with her children became more peaceful. They started opening up more because they felt safe, not judged. When your peace becomes your priority, your presence becomes a gift. You stop being the parent who needs to control and become the parent who brings calm, wisdom, and support, only when asked. That's the kind of relationship that brings mutual respect. Let go of the reins, let them live, and turn your focus toward the life you still have, one filled with opportunities for growth, peace, and joy. Your calmness, your steadiness, and your trust will do more for your relationship than any piece of advice ever could. As we grow older, one of the hardest lessons to accept is that our role as a parent changes, but our worth does not. The respect we once received so naturally may begin to fade, leaving us feeling hurt, invisible, or taken for granted. But instead of demanding recognition, the wiser path is to quietly reclaim our dignity from within. This means no longer chasing approval, refusing to argue, and leading by the strength of our example. It means building emotional independence, setting clear boundaries, and giving with intention, not obligation. Most of all, it means creating a life of purpose beyond our children, letting go of the need to always be right and prioritizing peace over control. Respect doesn't grow from guilt or confrontation. It grows from calm, self-assured living. When we respect ourselves first, others begin to follow. And in that shift, we don't just repair relationships, we rediscover our own voice, our own joy, and our quiet power. Aging isn't about disappearing into the background. It's about standing tall in who you are and showing the world and your children that you're still someone worth listening to, honoring, and deeply respecting. Thank you for joining us today. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today, how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue to create great content to inform and inspire you. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.